there was a mixed reaction. The main thing it lost people was in the third act. Dante, I know you had issues, but I've seen the movie 3 times. It's a masterpiece. You don't get there. I got a very short list of my top 10. Year's not over. Not the more serious movies come out in the fall, but this thing is so note perfect. I know it's too long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Doesn't feel long to me.
No,
Everything, and even the script for this, there is not a wasted line. There is not a wasted shot. He storyboarded much of the film. You mentioned on your stream, Rob, the opening shot wasn't exactly the opening, but the walk of fame and like the
I love the opening shot with the egg.
Yes.
I thought that was genius.
It's on so many levels, this thing, and there are details. There's graffiti that you see outside that alleyway door about the substance, like with graphics that match. It's down to the graphics of the substance itself and the instructions of fetishizing of this medical procedure, which I feel like also this movie hits women different. Because literally the body horror comes from, on the other end, Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth Sparkle, aging. Her finger becomes old. And that's a horror for her, to the point where she doesn't want to be seen, right? Like it really does. Like, I talk to women who have seen this film, and they are affected on a different level. So there's so much going on. I don't think a man could have made this movie. I really believe this needed a woman to be able to tell this level of horror. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, I agree with all of that, but I had somebody write me. So after I did my show, this guy named Gordon Cutter wrote, he hated the movie. And he wrote, I thought, a really cogent, I'd love to just read a little bit about
please.
What he says. He said, I think there's a tendency to blow up or exaggerate genre films that are directed by A, foreigners, and B, women. In this case, a French woman. It's almost like whatever fault these critics would pick apart in the work of someone like Brian Yuzna or Panos Cosmatos, both of whose works this film liberally steals from a lot, they will overlook in a film like this one. It's almost as if those same faults, and they're even worse in this film, I would argue, must be imbued with some hidden meaning or intent simply because they come from the mind of a French woman. I'm not so forgiving. I thought this film was a complete waste of time. The only unique idea was the mechanism behind an execution of the birthing scene itself. Everything else was cribbed from some other better source. I walked out of the theater, frankly, pissed. Now that I've had some time to think about it, the only thing I'm not sure about is whether it was all intentional, in the sense that the movie gets increasingly dumber as it goes along, almost mirroring the degeneration of the lead character's physical and mental state.
But I do think that this movie hits, Rob, you've worked in the industry, so is Jim, so is Paul. There is a value assigned to women based on your and there's so much of this. You're so pretty and happy and smile, like all of that. And when women reach a certain point, they're no longer valuable. They have no value. There's an expiration date. And her character, Elizabeth, was trying to bypass the expiration date, right? Become valuable and become loved again. It really pushed love. She would zoom in on the word love on a bouquet of roses. I want love. So many people who work in entertainment, actors in particular, to be front and center like that. There's something in you that's missing. You want that love, and will go to great lengths to get love of adulation of strangers. So there's so many levels there.
There's also, Chris, I would say that the casting of Demi Moore in particular in this role was pretty spectacular because of her own career trajectory. Yeah. You think about her as a brat packer and then being America's sweetheart in Ghost. And then
forgetting about Parasite. I assume you're going to talk about.
No, I mean, she, Demi Moore is the girl that's on the "I Spit on Your Grave" one sheet. People don't know this, but when she did Parasite for Charles Band, they used her on the Wizard video cover. It's Demi Moore is the girl that's on the cover of the original "I Spit on Your Grave" poster. But what's interesting about Demi Moore is she was the first nude woman on the cover of, was it Vanity Fair? When she was pregnant. and very famous. And then, of course, obviously, she's had work done marrying Bruce Willis, then with Ashton Kutcher. Her own life has made her involvement in this movie chef's kiss, because she sort of embodies everything in real life that this woman had gone through, especially career-wise. I mean, when she did things, she was pilloried for doing striptease, at the same time she was doing G.I. Jane for Ridley Scott. I mean, and I every time the camera, first of all, for her to do the fearlessness, the way she'd show her stomach, the way she showed her 61-year-old ass, fearless performance. I thought she looked great through the whole movie, but I understand what was going on. The fact that she allowed the camera to get that close to her face, there was anything that she might have, any vanity that she might have had, was stripped away. And whether you're complaining that some of this stuff emulates society, using this society, not we live in a society, but the movie society or The Thing or anything like that, I think misses the point. This movie was wildly entertaining. And at the end of the day, it might have cribbed from a lot of things. A lot of horror directors crib from other people's work. Certainly Tarantino has made a career of making genre pastiches from other people's movies, whether it's Ringo Lam or whomever. And I think that this film, I loved the 2 hours. There you go. This, people forget how freaking scandalous this was when it came out. I mean, everybody was talking about this, and here it's celebrating, and this is Ghost era Demi Moore, a beautiful woman who's doing what only a woman can do, which is carry a child, to give birth, to give life. And look at her here. So for her to do this, I think from a career perspective, not only was she great in it and fearless in it, but because it was Demi Moore, there was a meta level to everything that we were watching that I just thought was unbelievable. And I was having so much fun in the theater. Would I have liked to know more about the substance? Yes. Is this a movie I would love? I would love to see a sequel to this, because we know that there's a lot of other stories going on. We know that there's other stories. Even the guy that coerced or got Demi Moore to get into this, we meet him, his other self later. I mean, there's so much interesting stuff going on in this movie. I loved it.
You know what?
I really I think it's a great movie. I thought it was 3/4 of an amazing movie. I look, Dennis Quaid blew me away, man. I think, like, even though he only has a few parts in the movie, man, I thought that his character, he killed it. Dennis Quaid killed it. Demi Moore killed it. Margaret Qualley, is that her name?
Qualley.
Killed it.
Yeah.
It was a great film, man. Like the scene that I keep thinking about when I see clips of that movie is the scene where, well, not that scene, not this scene right here, but no, I keep thinking about that scene where she's getting ready for her date with that guy. And she just can't get out of the house, man. Like she every time she looks at herself, she goes back and does something different. Then she goes again, and then she comes back and does something different. And she basically ends up just not even going out. And I thought Demi Moore killed that scene. It was a great film. Look, is it in my top 5 of this year? Maybe not. I don't know. But for me, my problem is that it went on too long. I felt like, at some point I started to realize, hey, I've been in this theater for a very long time, and the ending for me does kind of go off the rails. And I know it's supposed to, but it went off the rails in a way I felt like took away from everything that was built up until that point.
Yeah, I agree. I
disagree with you.
Excessive at the end. I
Yeah,
thought it was just
I think the ending,
the top.
to me,
go
the
ahead,
ending
sir.
was just full circle. It's just taking the story full circle.
Yeah, was it though?
Yeah, I mean, the Hollywood Walk of Fame star. That's kind of where
Yeah.
it ends.
Well,
And
I mean, no,
the other-
that part was
No. Yeah, I think he's talking about like the scene at the end, and I don't know if that's a pageant or the New Year's Day celebration or whatever that. New Year's Eve, yeah, like that to me was where I was like, okay, can we just get this movie finished? Because I got the point of the movie, and I thought up until that point I was good. I was like, okay, and I didn't know how they were going to end it, but then when they do the little cutout of Demi Moore's face and they paste it to I was just like, all right,
it was
man,
like at that point,
I'm over this thing. I'm done. All right,
Honestly,
just
that's
hurry up
kinda
and
where I
get this
was
thing over
getting
with.
into it.
And I thought it was just
myself-
going to fade to black at that point, and people were going to stand up and clap, and it was just going to kind of fade to black, and it didn't. And then that was like, all right, now we're just in excess mode, which I guess for some people, cool. but it just didn't work for me at all. And, I know that this is a very divisive movie specifically because of the way it ended, because I think up until that point, I think most people were probably on board, and it's just the way it ended. It went on too long. And then that ending was just what the hell is this?
For me, that ending, that insane ending was, that's kind of where I clicked back into the movie, because it was just escalating. And then it reminded me of how bad Men was, that movie Men, because this was almost like that. And then to finally put a button on it, I thought it was great. Go ahead.
No one heard anything you guys have said.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah,
no, I was gonna say, people. I know. You know what's so funny? Like, I haven't bought Men on Blu-ray because, and I know it was just a very divisive movie, and more people just didn't like it. I just found it fascinating. Like, I found Men, especially, and you're right, the ending of Men is just so bonkers. But I think this really sort of matched that in its bonkerness more in maybe a early Peter Jackson kind of way.
It was bonkers, but I understood the bonkers aspect to it. Unlike Men, where it was just like, why are we going in this direction? At least in the Substance, I understood the direction they were going in.
Well, I felt like everything leading up to that was amazing, man. And I even like the fact that we didn't know anything about the Substance other than, hey, there's this thing, there's this formula that you could inject into your body, but I like that we don't know who made it. I like that we don't know where it came from. It was just there, and I like a lot of those aspects of the film.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. We need a prequel now to understand what this is and how it came to be.
But I like movies better when they don't explain everything in the movie. It's just like, it's not even what the movie is about the substance. It's about what this woman, this individual actress is going through in her life. And it's kind of, the substance is a way where it just kind of unfolds and exposes, the trauma within herself. I thought it was interesting that, she's really two different people of two different minds, because it kept saying, you are one, right? That was the main point. You are this person is you, but yet she's got this kind of split personality in a way that she, understands, I want to have that same success that I had. I want to still be young and beautiful, but at the same time, she's almost kind of gets to the point where she needs to accept the fact that she is getting older. So it's like this kind of trial that she's undergoing, and then she could stop it at any point in time, but she keeps choosing, or a couple of times she chooses not to. Again, I thought that was a very interesting examination of this particular actress and what may be going on in the minds of a lot of Hollywood actresses. I thought that was great. Okay. I loved it. I was up until that point. They had me. I was on board. It was the ending. I'm like, what the hell are we doing now? And the body horror stuff, I don't care. I mean, I love horror, but I think it was just excessive. It was just way too much. They probably could have peeled back about 10 minutes of that, and it would have been perfect.
I don't normally like body horror, but I think what I liked about this was kind of like a 2.5 hour Twilight Zone episode. Because it set out a premise, and it just took that premise to its extreme, and it said something about us, about humanity, about what it's like. And this is why I'm more drawn to these kind of horror films than I am just basic slasher type horror stuff.
Sure.
Well, one of the things, one of the things, that he brings up with the fact that they keep on reminding, and it's keep on being said over and over again in the movie. It's like, remember, this is you. Remember, this is you.
You are one. You are one.
You are one. And I think one of the really brilliant things about the movie is that they don't share the same brain. It's not like, they go into the coma and they sort of have somehow magically have the same experiences. The fact that they are these separate entities, but they kept on having to be reminded that they're the same person.
Right.
It's almost like the whole idea of this sort of like the narcissism and the the ego of I see this as they see each other as enemies.
Right. The dualism that exists in all of us, probably, in my opinion, it's like two different individuals. I'm always of two different minds. What I want, what I need, like that sort of thing. I thought that was brought out brilliantly. I loved it.
Yeah.
It just went on too long.
I mean, I love the point where Demi Moore would eat anything she wanted, and leave her house a complete utter mess. So when Margaret Qualley shows up, she's got
what the hell is this?
Chicken bones in her body, and she's looking at this horrible mess that she then has to clean up. And I really like the escalation of that, and it really disturbed me when Sue starts breaking the rules and starts injecting. She wants more and more days, and the way that wound where she stuck the thing got more and more pussy and gross. And I mean, but like you just said, Da, I love that whole idea of the narcissism and youth. Just like, there's no rules that apply to me. I don't have to deal with what they told me the rules are. I can just come in and take some extra until there was none left.
Yeah.
And I mean, all that stuff I think gets a little lost in the people that are slagging off on the movie, because
one quick thing I want to say, and it goes back to what Robert said about that email, is and Dante actually touched upon it too. It's subject matter aside, it is a master class in visual storytelling.
Oh yes.
Anybody who wants to be a filmmaker should watch it, because it's like, I don't know how much dialogue's in this film, but it's very little. Everything is shown to you. Even they set up all the things with the numbers, with the days, everything is visual. And that's what's great about it. Even what Dante said about the date, she goes on, none of it's done with dialogue. So that's why everybody should see this movie, just for that reason alone, because it's genius. And I know Brian Usden's work, I don't think he's that great as a visual storyteller. No. But I'm just saying, it's like that, I think, is a cut above what we normally see.
I was calling this the Blade Runner of body horror movies, because it's so well. And Coraline Forget, this is only her second feature film. Her first feature, Revenge, which came out in 2017, which Second Sight put out on Blu-ray, is really, really good. It's a rape revenge movie. I recommend everybody watch it. But she is a consummate filmmaker. She's been to many of France's film schools. She's classically trained in terms of getting a film education. She really worked her way up making short films. She ended up directing an episode of Netflix's Sandman series. But this is only her second feature, and for a second feature like this, it's incredibly accomplished, because as evidenced by the visual storytelling, the shot choices. And I mean, the idea, there's a hallway where she's clearly showing you it's The Shining. This movie is deliberately making you think about all these other films. It's not a mistake. She's not stealing. She's asking you to remember the history of body horror. I mean, it's all there.
She's a master. She's a master. We got to get
Revenge. Can I just jump in for a second about Revenge? Because I saw Revenge in the theater when it first came out, and I didn't know what to expect. I just thought it was going to be another take on I Spit on Your Grave kind of film, and it really showed an amazing. She's got a really great, amazing visual style. To her, and Revenge was so. Yeah, it was such a visceral experience.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and I remember really being, wow, I just saw something so different. And when I found, that was really, look, I was going to see The Substance regardless, but when I understood that it was the same director, I was like, oh, well, now I'm really excited to see this. Yeah, it did not disappoint.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that we like movies made by female filmmakers, and this background image is not helping that point at all.